us your name.
So I'm Katherine. I'm Katherine Hallgarten, and my daughter, one of my daughters is called Ruth, and Ruth is Eve's mother, and I'm here because I was born in Britain, but my parents came from Germany as refugees just before the Second World War. My family was in business. They had a shipping business. They were carrying cargo around the world. And Hitler said, firstly, you're not allowed to work as a lawyer if you're Jewish. Secondly,
Well,
I can ask you a question.
well, wait a minute.
okay. Second, then after that, you weren't allowed to have a shop, and then you weren't allowed to work as a teacher, and then you could only leave Germany if you had enough money or some friends or some family in other countries. It was very difficult to leave Germany, and because my parents had family and they had friends here, they managed to leave Germany and not be killed in the death camps.
Did you ever see Hitler in person?
No, I didn't see Hitler in person. No, I didn't, because I wasn't old enough. They say he was a very, very good speaker and could enchant crowds of people when he spoke to them.
When you came to England, what did it feel like when you first landed and
Well,
arrived?
I can only answer that question for my mother, because I was born in England, just. My mother, who was a writer, she wrote a writer of books, children's books and grown-ups books, she came with her typewriter, and she was very pregnant with me, and she wept and wept and wept when she landed in Victoria Station, and my father, who came beforehand, fetched her, because she thought she'd lost her language. If you've only written in German and suddenly know that you won't be writing in German anymore, that seemed like a great sadness to her.
What was it like when the war was happening?
What was it like when the war was happening? I was very lucky because we were first of all interned in the Isle of Man. Do any of you know about internment in the Isle of Man? I was about 1 year old, and what they did with German refugees, the British government, they didn't know who were spies, and they didn't know who had come from Hitler, because otherwise Hitler would have killed them. So they took groups of people and put them into camps in Britain for a year or two. Now, those camps were mainly in hotels. We were treated very well. My father was at one end, my mother and I were at the other end in hotels. We had enough to eat, we didn't have to work, nobody suffered, but there was barbed wire all the way around us, so we couldn't go where we wanted for 2 years. London, when we came out of the camp, London was destroyed, and you can ask your grandparents, some of whom must know about London. Will you do that? Yeah. Ask your grandparents. We did live in London, and we lived in Bristol, where not so much was destroyed in town by the bombs, and we used to go and play on the bomb sites, which very quickly were covered with weeds and grass, and there's always big notices up saying, dangerous, don't play here. But those were the days when one could just go and play, and after school we'd just go and play, like you go and play in the woods here, we'd go and play on the bomb sites. In what ways were my school days similar or different to those at KA's? I remember one when I was about 6 or 7, learning joined-up writing, and we did writing patterns, day after day after day. And I bet you never did any writing patterns, did you?
Yeah, I did.
Did you?
I
Did you write?
I used to, every week, I used to always do one in my old school.
Yes. So that's not so dissimilar. And we used to sing our tables, our times tables. Every morning after register, we'd sing a different times table. Do you do that? You did?
At the very
So you are 11. How are my school days different? Well, 11 and 12. Every morning I had to tie a tie. How many of you know how to tie a tie? I do know. How many girls know how to tie a tie? So I had to tie a tie, and my school uniform had to be 4 fingers above my knee. It wasn't allowed to be any longer. So I think that's different from now. And we had to eat our school dinners, otherwise you sat there till going home time with your dinner in front of you.
What was your favourite toy?
favourite toy. I had a doll with a china head and a cloth body. Just remember, there was nothing in plastic. Nothing at all was made of plastic. And so this china, she was called Hattie, and my grandmother made all the clothes.
I remember doing on the weekend.
On the weekends, well, first of all, we'd have Friday night in the way that Jewish people do all over the world. So we'd light the candles. Sabbath. So we'd light the candles and say the blessings. And then the weekend would begin. And then, whereas when you're 11, you're already beginning to go out to parties and things. There weren't parties, only very, very rarely. And also when I was 11, there was no television at all. And there was children's radio for 1 hour a day. So, and more important than anything else, I believe, there was no central heating. So a mixture of all those meant that we all sat together in the sitting room and all the children squabbled and the grown-ups read books.
Is your favourite food like?
My favourite food is eggs, and I think it was because when I was a child and it was rationed, we had 1 egg a month. There was lots of powdered eggs, it tasted disgusting, and there was 1 egg a month, and sometimes 1 egg per person.
What are you proud of?
One of the things I'm proudest of and happiest about is that I've lived in London for most of my life, and that when Eve was a baby and when Luke was a baby and when Rosa were babies, I could wheel them along in Hampstead Heath to the same swings at Parliament Hill that I'd wheeled their mother Ruth, and that all the time I'd been allowed to live in the same country and hadn't been chased from country to country.